It all started with one quote. Sophie Cunningham sat down on her podcast and casually dropped the kind of truth bomb that leaves a crater. With just a few sentences, she changed everything people thought they knew about DeWanna Bonner's dramatic mid-season exit from the Indiana Fever. Cunningham didn't sugarcoat anything. She exposed Bonner's actions, her mindset, and the unspoken tension in the locker room. And the most shocking part? It confirmed what fans had only guessed until now. Bonner didn't just leave the Fever, she ghosted them, vanished. No explanation, no goodbyes, just a disappearing act wrapped in vague, personal reasons. And when she showed up wearing a Phoenix Mercury jersey, everything fell into place. This wasn't just a quiet departure, it was a full-blown betrayal. So the question isn't just why DeWanna Bonner left, it's how she left, and what that says about her legacy, her leadership, and the team she left behind. But what happened next would take things even further. When DeWanna Bonner signed with the Indiana Fever, it felt like the missing puzzle piece had finally arrived. She wasn't just any veteran, she was a multi-time All-Star, a proven scorer, and a respected voice across the league. For a young team built around rising star Caitlin Clark, this looked like the perfect setup. The hype was real. Bonner stood at that press conference talking about leadership, sacrifice, and being close to her kids. She said she was ready to bring energy, be a mentor, and help push the Fever to the next level. Clark praised her leadership instantly, calling Bonner the strongest voice in the locker room. Head coach Stephanie White seemed thrilled to finally have a vet who could anchor the team through the growing pains. Even fans bought in. On paper, this was a win, a power move, but the picture-perfect narrative wouldn't last long, because as soon as the game started, the difference between what was said and what actually happened couldn't have been more obvious. And that's when the questions started. Once the season tipped off, everything that looked so good on paper began to fall apart. Bonner's performance was nothing short of underwhelming. Over 9 games, she averaged just 7.1 points per game, shooting worse than most rookies. Her rebounds? 3.8. Assists? 1.6. For a Hall of Fame caliber vet? Those weren't just bad numbers. They were embarrassing, and it wasn't just the stats. It was the energy, or lack of it. Bonner looked checked out. Her movement was slow. Her body language was off. She didn't look like someone ready to mentor a young team. She looked like someone counting down the minutes until the final buzzer. Fans started noticing. Teammates did too. Something was off. This wasn't the player they'd been promised. The vibe in the locker room started to shift. You could feel the confusion, the disappointment. And then came the decision that confirmed what everyone feared. Bonner got benched, a multi-time All-Star, barely a month into the season, riding the pine. And that's when things really started to spiral. Getting benched should have been a wake-up call, a moment to regroup, refocus, and bounce back. But instead of rising to the challenge, Bonner sank even deeper into silence. Her demeanor shifted completely. Teammates described the vibe as tense and quiet. Gone was the vocal leader she had promised to be. In her place stood a player who barely spoke, barely smiled, and barely engaged. What made it worse? There was no explanation, no speech to the team, no acknowledgement of the shift, just long stares, missed team huddles, and a growing sense of distance. Coaches were caught in a bind. How do you manage a legend who's clearly lost interest? How do you keep the team together when one of your leaders checks out? The tension was building. On the bench, during practices, even in press conferences, something was brewing behind the scenes. And then, just like that, she disappeared. No warning, no farewell, just gone. And things were about to get even messier. Bonner didn't officially quit. She didn't announce anything. One day she was on the bench, the next she was off the roster. The team called it personal reasons. But fans knew better. That vague excuse only raised more questions. Was it family-related? Health? Conflict with coaching? None of it made sense, especially with no communication coming from Bonner herself. Games went by with no sign of her, reporters asked, and the coaching staff gave the same robotic reply: "We're respecting her privacy." Even Caitlin Clark, who had once praised Bonner as a leader, now had to dodge questions with tight-lipped professionalism. What made it worse? The longer Bonner stayed gone, the more obvious it became that she wasn't coming back. Whispers started. Was she really dealing with something serious, or was she just done? Then came the twist that confirmed everyone's suspicions. Reports started circulating that Bonner wanted out, not just out of the lineup, out of Indiana entirely. She wanted to return to Phoenix, and not next season, immediately. While still under contract, she was already planning her exit. Suddenly, personal reasons felt like a cover story, because behind the scenes, DeWanna Bonner was already plotting her next move. And the Fever? They were left holding the bag. The fallout was swift and brutal. Fans who had once cheered Bonner were now turning on her. The same people who celebrated her signing now felt betrayed. They filled comment sections with disbelief and frustration. Game threads exploded with speculation. And while the Fever tried to maintain professionalism, the silence was deafening. Nobody was coming forward with answers. Not Bonner, not her agent, not the front office, but the most telling sign, her teammates. Players started talking about her in the past tense. Mentions of her impact began to vanish from media interviews. Caitlin Clark, who had once publicly praised Bonner's leadership, stopped referencing her entirely. Behind the scenes, the message was clear. She was gone, and the locker room was moving on. Meanwhile, rumors continued to swirl. Some said she wanted to return to Phoenix to be closer to her partner, Alyssa Thomas. Others claimed she simply wasn't happy in Indiana. But whatever the reason, it became clear that Bonner wasn't planning to return. Not now, not ever. Then came the confirmation. News broke that Bonner had rejoined the Phoenix Mercury mid-season. She hadn't waited until the off-season. She left the Fever in the dust and walked straight into a new role in Phoenix. For Indiana fans, this wasn't just unprofessional, it was personal. The final piece of the puzzle came when Sophie Cunningham decided to speak. She didn't hold back. On her podcast, Show Me Something, Cunningham gave fans exactly what they'd been waiting for. The truth from someone who had seen it all. She confirmed that Bonner wasn't happy in Indiana. But that wasn't the bombshell. The real shocker? Bonner didn't tell anyone. No text, no call, no heads up, just disappeared. Cunningham said it flat out. If you're gonna leave, you're going to have to expect getting booed. She didn't just call out Bonner's exit, she called out her character. In Cunningham's words, Bonner deserved happiness, but she also owed her teammates basic respect. A goodbye, a message, anything. She wasn't asking for drama or attention, she was asking for decency. Cunningham's honesty cut through the noise. She didn't just air grievances, she set the record straight. And in doing so, she validated every suspicion fans had about Bonner's unprofessional exit. The locker room had been left in silence. And now, finally, someone was breaking it. The only question left is, what will this mean for Bonner's legacy? The answer to that question came not just from podcast clips or fan reactions, but from the scoreboard. When Bonner returned to Indiana with the Phoenix Mercury, she was booed relentlessly. Every time she touched the ball, the crowd made sure she felt their disappointment. But it wasn't just the noise that sent a message, it was the result. The Indiana Fever didn't just beat Phoenix, they dominated them. Bonner put up just 4 points in 21 minutes. Meanwhile, Ari McDonald and Chloe Beebe, players who actually wanted to be there, shined. The chemistry was real. The vision was finally working. Even from the sidelines, Caitlin Clark, out with a groin injury, couldn't hide her satisfaction. She cheered every stop, every block, every bucket. Her energy said it all. This was her team now. And Bonner? She was part of the past. Even Alyssa Thomas, Bonner's partner, couldn't resist making things worse, taunting Fever fans by saying Bonner had finally joined a real team. It only further highlighted the contrast between the Fever's class and Phoenix's pettiness. The Fever's players and coaches refused to engage in drama. They let the scoreboard and their growth speak for them. In the end, Bonner's departure may have been the best thing that could have happened to Indiana. It exposed the gaps in leadership, forced new voices to rise, and brought in players who were hungry, not just for minutes, but for meaning. And as for Bonner's legacy, that's now up for debate. Because no matter how great her past achievements were, one fact will always remain. She quit on her team. And Indiana didn't just survive without her, they got stronger.